Is it possible to make a 2.2 tonne electric family car that out-accelerates a Lamborghini still fun to drive? Well, that's why we're here in Sweden to find out, because it's time to test the new Kia EV6 GT.
But before we get to that, please do let us know whether the idea of a super fast electric family car floats your boat or just makes you think it's all a bit silly. And like and subscribe if you can, because that's what pleases the higher-ups.
And so, welcome to Sweden, home of beautiful countryside, beautiful people, and an uncommon amount of murders, if the TV shows that I've been watching are anything to go by. Scandi Noir has a lot to answer for, but it's also where we find this, the newest member of the Kia EV6 family.
Now we here at Electrifying.com very much like the Kia EV6. It's slightly odd looking, we like that, yet practical and spacious. There's plenty of standard kit, the range is good, and the charging capabilities are class leading, as is the warranty. It even drives really nicely. It's a bit of a home run really. And all of those things are present and correct on the GT version. It's got the same 74 kWh battery as the long range and the same super efficient 800 volt charging system.
But there are people in the world for whom more is better and too much is just enough, because this is a go faster version of the EV6 that has 577 brake horsepower. That's getting on for supercar levels of power. It's got two motors, four-wheel drive, and a 0 to 62 time of 3.5 seconds. Now that's something a supercar will definitely notice away from the lights. But as far as it goes, it's actually quite subtle given the potential performance. It's got 21-inch wheels, which are really very nice. It's got bigger brakes, which you can see because they're picked out in this rather fetching shade of lime green. Different bumpers front and back. It sits slightly different, but generally it's quite quiet. This is a little bit of a sleeper. And the subtle changes continue on the inside. Yes, there are some very cool bucket seats which actually are really comfortable, and the lime green thing is picked out in the piping and the stitching as well as around the steering wheel here. But generally it's as EV6 as we know and love. So it's got this big bank of curved screens, the right hand side is a touchscreen set, it's got the same haptic bar for often used functions underneath, same big centre console, same amount of generous storage, and there is the same amount of space in the back and in the boot, which is great because we like all that stuff. Okay, so the frunk is a little bit smaller than the rear-wheel drive only version because there's an extra motor under there, but it's the same setup really.
As you might expect for a Kia that costs £61,595 at the moment, there's quite a lot of standard kit. You get dual LED headlights with adaptive beams, LED taillights, premium paint, the bucket seats, heated everything including wheel, front seats and the outer pair of rear seats, dual automatic aircon, a power tailgate, vehicle-to-device charging, loads of charging points, a Meridian premium sound system with 14 speakers, augmented reality head-up display, remote park assist, cameras everywhere, every advanced driver assistance system you can think of. You kinda get the idea.
But to be honest, the value for money thing really isn't the point of the GT. That would be this. Holy crikey. It's really quite quick off the mark. Basically, if you have friends with things like BMW M3s, they're going to suddenly dislike you very intensely. And the speed just keeps coming. Where a lot of electric cars kind of peter out or have a limit around 100 miles an hour, the EV6 GT will actually go to 160 odd miles per hour. Now, I'm assuming that the battery will drain in about 30 miles at that speed, but it's nice that you could if you wanted to. The acceleration isn't quite as neck-snapping as something like a Porsche Taycan Turbo S, but it's not far off. And it's even more surprising because it's in a big four-seat kind of family hatchback. It's properly startling. The problem is, that doesn't feel like news though, does it? We're all quite familiar by now with the fact that electric cars are quite quick off the mark. The fact that this car accelerates really quickly really isn't a big deal. It's a neat trick, but not a particularly surprising one. So we're going to go somewhere to figure out whether this EV6 GT can actually go around corners. And it can! The thing to remember with your EV6 GT is that when you want to actually go fast, you have to press this little button here. You can't miss it because it's really rather green. And it's the GT button. And it's the little button that makes all the magic happen with your fast Kia. The thing you've got to remember with these electric fast cars is that they're always coping with weight. So a battery like this one in this GT is actually just under half a ton in weight. So you're always battling the mass. Now this car seems to be doing really rather well with it. It suddenly lightens up when you press the GT button because the throttle response is quicker and the car just feels much more lively, and it's actually quite good fun. Now you wouldn't expect a big 5-seat electric hatchback to actually be this nimble, but it is. Sorry, I'm not looking at the camera. I'm too busy having fun. Now obviously if you're using either sport or normal modes, the throttle response is knocked back slightly, so it's not quite as aggressive. GT mode's the one to have, because it actually loosens off the traction control as well. I mean, the surprising thing is that you're used to hearing noise. You're used to having an engine. To actually sort of work out where you are in a corner because you're changing gear, you're doing things with it. Whereas this, you're just turning in and trying to feed the power in a way that makes the car react the way you want it to.
So no, you're not getting an out-and-out sports car, but you are getting an EV6 with some serious poke that doesn't lose anything when you want to be calm.
It's certainly got that extra spice. It's a GT car with a little bit more muscle and a little bit more ability. It certainly moves the EV6 on a little bit. But if you want to be really naughty, then there is a special mode. So if you press the GT button and then you press and hold the traction control button until you get traction control and ESC disabled, and then get both paddles and hold them, you get drift mode activated. And you know what that means?
Now this obviously looks fun, but there's a bigger question about whether an electric car really should be able to toast tyres in this fashion. Is it a good thing to tempt people out of combustion cars and please the petrol heads, or should we be concentrating on range and efficiency? Answers on a digital postcard in the comments, please. Boot the GT around like a maniac and you do lose something. Because there's the option of more power, the GT gets a slightly lower WLTP range figure than the other cars at 263 miles, but that's, still plenty. And it still charges at the same rate, so 10 to 80% on a big enough charger is about 20 minutes. Worth noting though, that it'll only hit its peak charging rate from about 5 to 55% state of charge, at which point it drops to about 175 kilowatts and then keeps dropping before drooping considerably just before 80% and being slowish to the magic 100. So you'll only get that ultra fast top up if your battery is lower than 50%. Still mega fast, just not all of the time.
So what do we think? Well, the EV6 GT is an expensive car. But I happen to think that given the ability, the performance and the specification, it's actually quite keenly priced. The extra power doesn't make it into an out-and-out sports car, but it does make it quite a spicy GT. It's really rather good, in other words. It's brilliant, in other words. And it also allows you to do really rather childish things at traffic lights, which I never would, obviously.
If you want to know more about the Kia EV6 GT, other versions of the EV6 or indeed any of the competition, then please do log on to electrifying.com and we'll help you with any questions you may have. We are here, after all, to clear the air.